Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another special guest on because I get to talk to a business owner from the hometown where I grew up. And not only that is, he's also a fellow Notre Dame alum. And as all the listeners and watchers know, I am a very proud Irish. So welcome to the show, Josh Willoughby.
Thank you, Terrell. Appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit about, your background before you started the business Market on Main.
Yeah, certainly. So initially, obviously, I went to Clemson for my undergraduate degree. Was just a financial management guy. Moved up to Charlotte shortly after I graduated. Got a job with Vanguard. Worked there as essentially a stockbroker for a couple years. Decided that I didn't really think I wanted to do that career path really long term. And so I decided that I'd go and get an MBA from Notre Dame. Really, I didn't actually think about Notre Dame to begin with. I took the GMAT, and when I took the GMAT, they kind of reached out to me, and they're like, hey, we think you should apply here. And so I applied. I'd never really thought at all about Notre Dame, and I went up there and visited, and it was just a really incredible school, as obviously you know, and you just get this really cool feeling when you're there, and it feels kind of like you're in Hogwarts or something. I don't know. It's a very special place, and so it just immediately kind of connected with me. And so I went there, got an MBA degree there, and then after that, I moved to Florida, and I worked at a large grocery firm, and that's kind of where I kind of got into the business of like selling food, I guess you could say. I was more in like a data analytics type position, but I really got a feel for the numbers and the margins on things and how you could make a business, food business work. And so that was kind of my entry level to that. And then obviously our business here in Columbia, South Carolina, is called Market on Main. And it's really a food business. So we have, a great gourmet kitchen. We have a little specialty market where we sell all kinds of stuff, jams, jellies, pickles, mainly fresh local product. And it's been really good. We do have a bar as well. We're currently kind of growing out a little venue space that we have next door where we got a large screen, and that's really attracting a good, night and weekend crowd. And so we're hanging in there right now during everything going on and getting by. And so that's good, especially for these types of hospitality businesses that have been really, really impacted. But it's definitely been a long journey. It's been a good one. It's never a dull moment, I guess you can say. So, so that's kind of the overview, I guess, the high level overview of my story.
Gotcha. So when it came down to, like I said, you were working in the food, I guess you say the food industry in Florida, what was that like, that mental transition like for you to say, I'm working in the industry for another company, but I really want to make that transition to, having your own business? Like, because I know a lot of people talk about, I wish I could start my own business. Like, what was that mental, I guess you'd say, hurdle, and how was that experience for you?
It was pretty tough, honestly. There were certainly some positives, a lot of positives about being in a corporate environment. Obviously, it's a lot more, I would say, stable than doing your own type of venture. There's always, I guess, a little bit of doubt in your mind that this is a brand new thing, like nobody's seen it before, nobody's really, people have done it before, obviously, but for you don't really know what's going to happen. But luckily I've had a good like support system around me that's really kind of helped push me along, like whenever I've had like significant doubts about things or what have you. I've got a good family, my wife, and my father and my mother and those people, and even my grandmother who lives on our family farm still. So they're all kind of like in the background, rooting for you and things. And so that kind of really helps you out when things get challenging, because they do. I mean, it's a, entrepreneurship is definitely a challenge. I mean, it's the hardest thing that I've ever done before. And I've worked in corporate environments and that kind of thing. And I guess it's almost like every single level you think it can't get any harder, but then it always does, so but it's good. I mean, it's a good way of exercising your mind too, because you're always dealing with different things. When I was in a corporate role, it was a lot of like, you're doing the same thing. And after like 3 or 4 months of doing it, you get really good at it. And then it's just kind of like, you're doing the same thing. Like here, it's always like, there's always something different to do. And you're always like, well, the sales aren't good enough. Like, what can I do to like drive the sales higher? Or what can I do to like improve the efficiency, to reduce the costs on things? All those types of things are just constantly running through your mind. Whereas in corporate, you're not really, you just don't have as big of like a connection with the business, I guess. And so it's easier for you to like take time off and to be kind of separated from it and to not be thinking about it, I guess, and all those things. When you're in kind of an entrepreneurial role and doing things yourself, you're really, or at least for me, it just gets me really involved. Like it's almost like it's all the time I have to be kind of thinking about it, have to be trying to figure out like, how am I going to improve this? What am I going to do to make this better? Who can I, what resources can I use? Who can I connect with and talk with and try to grow things with, all those things. It's always, it's good because everything is always exciting and you're always constantly evolving and doing things. So that's what I would kind of say in terms of the, I guess, the really long answer to that question.
But no, I think that there's so many different aspects to that. And I think it's very true of, when you make that leap of going into a business, I mean, there's so many things that you think about that you didn't have to think about when you were working. And then, like, one of the things that, one of the next things I wanted to ask about is, we were talking before about, the sources of where the food comes from. You were talking about sourcing it local. Like, how was it developing that relationship with whether it's the local farmers or the local food producers, to make sure you can provide a local product?
Yeah, I mean, so that's, it's things are getting a little bit better from that perspective. There's a lot of focus on local products. I would say probably back in like the 90s, certainly, and then the 2000s, it was kind of more like everything came on like a Cisco truck, I feel like, and there was not that much, people didn't really care if it was local, I guess. And then now, you almost have to have that, especially if you're not a chain operation. Like you've got to be, a part of the local community as a small business owner. And so it's really about, supporting your local farms. And they're also small businesses too. And as far as building out those connections, a lot of the connections that we made with local farmers was through our chef that we had hired. And our chef's a really good chef, and he's been, in the business for about 30 years. And so he actually has some pretty long-standing relationships with local farms. And so when we started kind of building those relationships out, most of them were relationships that he already had kind of developed at other restaurants that he worked at or with other businesses, that kind of thing. So that really, that really helped. A lot of our business is like making sure you have the right players in certain positions. So you got to make sure for a restaurant venue / business, you got to make sure you have like a really good quality chef, and that's kind of like your quarterback, and everything kind of goes off of that person. And then you got to have a key person for your service and a key person for your bar. And so you got to really build like a high quality team. I guess it's like anything else. I mean, it's the same thing in basketball or football or corporate America. You can't do it all by yourself. I mean, and I, in the beginning, trust me, like it was one of those things that I was doing a lot more like by myself type stuff, like, and it's just too much for you to be able to kind of do all that stuff. So you really have to learn, or at least what I've learned, is that I have to be much better at being very, very direct in communications of what we want and like what we want to achieve, and the strategy and all that, and then but trusting them to kind of get it done, and then having checks on that
Gotcha.
kind of on the back end. So that's kind of more of just the management style of it. um, but yeah, I mean, local farms, I mean, again, like my family, we're on my dad's side, we're basically 4 or 5 generations of farmers.
Wow.
So I mean, when I was a kid, I remember going to the farm, and we would actually sucker tobacco. Like I would stay with my grandma for the summer and we would sucker tobacco. Now they've basically done away with tobacco and they do mostly peanuts and corn and soybeans, and other types of produce. But yeah, so I mean, that's like one of the fundamental things for us. I mean, that's why we started a food business, because we have like a farming heritage, and we kind of wanted to see if we could build on that legacy and kind of go into, I guess, an associated area, but not the same area, but an associated area that would kind of give us maybe ultimately, as we discussed earlier, some sort of like a vertical integration of a supply chain way
Okay.
down the road, if we ever get to that point. But that would be, a really, really cool thing where we literally would have, a farm to table, type food business.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where we're ultimately headed to with this, in the really long term, I would say.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, so as the name implies, market on Main, so it implies that it's sitting on some main street. So can you tell the listeners who aren't as familiar with Columbia, like where can they find the place?
Yeah, so it's 1320 Main Street is the address. It's in the Meridian building. It's in the base of like a 17-story skyscraper. So it's on the first floor of that. Directly adjacent to that is a lot where we have basically developed it out into like a venue space. So it's like an all outdoor venue. We have shade sails. We have like a self pour beer wall, which is going to be really cool once we can actually use it. Right now, they don't allow us to like have people using the self pour, but the beer wall's out there, and that's a really cool addition. It's all electronic. It's done via like iPads, so that's really cool. And then we have a 23-foot wide LED screen. That's great for like watching sports, movies, in any type of entertainment that you can play on like an iPad. You can put it up on the screen. And then it's got like a little lawn area and a dining area. So it's really just like it's like a cool, it's just a cool outdoor space. I mean, that we've just thought about, and it's very unique. And I think people are just attracted to it. One, because everybody right now, there's like a shift to outdoor dining because of COVID. So everybody wants to be eating outside. Everybody wants to feel, more spaced out, and those things. So, that's really kind of help drive us a little bit. And the fact that it's just unique. I mean, most people are, eating inside of restaurants and they're not getting, a nice like outdoor experience. And especially with the screen, it does a really good job with like live music. We have a stage right below it, where we can
Okay.
have a musician or a DJ, or we do karaoke out there, where people sing themselves. We did a trivia night where we have people buzz in on their phone. They look at the big screen. The big screen has like the question and the multiple choice answers, and then they just buzz in on their phone, like from their table, socially distanced apart. And people have really started to like that too. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, so that's, I mean, it in terms of the geography of it, it's about a block away from the state capitol, and
Okay.
in downtown Columbia. So if you're going to visit the state capitol, we're basically a block away on Main Street. And you can't really miss it if you go up there. I mean, you'll see, the big screen TV, which is another good, marketing element of the business, and it's right next to a park, so we kind of have like a corner lot situation going on,
Okay.
which is really nice. And the bank next door to us has done a really good job of planting nice trees and great flowers and everything. So you really get like a feeling you're in kind of like Central Park, I guess, but you're in, Columbia, South Carolina, and it's got a great view of all the skyline of Columbia. And for the most part, I mean, people are really liking it. It's definitely been well received. The outside piece has been really well received. We're just trying to plan a lot of events and keep like the marketing going of it. Like tonight we have a country musician coming
Nice.
from Memphis actually. So he's coming into town on his way to Raleigh. So he's doing Raleigh shows, I think tomorrow and Saturday, and he's going to be here tonight. So yeah, it's a cool business. I mean, I didn't really think it would get into more of like the marketing aspect of it. Like I didn't do any degree in marketing or anything, but it's really become a lot more marketing than I would have imagined. And marketing is, really, really key. I mean, you gotta be able to drive the sales, and
Yeah.
the interest in any business. That's kind of been like my number one thing is like trying to figure out how to drive sales. And then, I try to improve efficiency, like kind of as a secondary, thing, because if you don't have any sales, it doesn't really make much sense to be efficient as you don't have any sales. So, um, it's a combination of the two, but I think marketing's kind of the biggest thing to make sure you get people in there, and then you're pleasing them, making them happy,
Mhm.
and the customer service is good, and to get them to keep coming back. So
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, before we wrap up, one question that I like to ask guests that come on is, when you think about your journey as and from the corporate world into being an entrepreneur and leading this great business, what's one lesson that you've learned in your journey that you would say, what, entrepreneurs need to learn this lesson if they're going to be successful?
I would say be like 100% determined that you're going to make it work. I think there's a lot of I mean, there's been a lot of times when I could have just been like, oh, there's no way this is going to work out. Like, especially the COVID came along, we had to lay off employees. We had to, literally operate with only a few people, and we were just doing to-go orders. The bar was closed, for 10 weeks. It just, everything that could have happened in a negative way almost pretty much happened. You're obviously still going out there. You're worried for your health too. But I mean, the bills are still there. So it's not like you can just stop, you got to keep. So I would just say, like, just keep being determined, keep pushing. Like, you got to like always be pushing. There's always going to be, other people out there pushing as well. And everybody, you hear it all the time. Everybody has the same amount of hours in the day. Right. I would just say probably be determined and have confidence in yourself, and just, whatever you do, I mean, if you have a passion for it, just, keep pushing, and ultimately over time, it'll work out for you if you're determined about it. And you got to have patience too. I mean, you can't, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not, it's just now for us. We've been doing this about 2 years. I mean, we had a lot of like development stuff that we had to do. We demolished a small building in downtown Columbia, which took a lot of like city approvals and all those things, a lot of little hurdles along that road. Um, but I would say just being patient with it, and just having a really strong, determination that you're just going to do what it takes to see your vision through, and you'll be pretty successful if you do that, I think so.
Awesome. Well, Josh, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing, your story of Market on Main, and for definitely giving us the wisdom and the insight that you kind of learned from your journey. We definitely, wish you all the best. And the next time I'm in Columbia, I'll have to stop by Market on Main now.
Please do. Yeah, please do. And tell everybody else to come by too. It's a really cool experience, and the food's really, really good too. So it's definitely unique. There's not really any other place like it. So that's kind of one of the good things about it, that also gives you kind of like a little bit of confidence that it's going to be around for a while, because it's just very, very unique, and people kind of see that, and people are gravitating toward that. So I feel pretty confident, knock on wood, that it'll be here for a good while. And hopefully the climate gets a little bit better. We get rid of all the pandemic, and the vaccine comes out, and then everybody's happy again. And
Yeah.
hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. But I definitely appreciate you having me on the show as well. And hope when you do come down, definitely let me know.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.